Hi everybody, this video is going to accompany the instructions for lab 1 here. So these are going to be the instructions here. So first thing is you'll find the lab, you'll go to Blackboard, and then you're going to download the lab from Blackboard. And once you download the lab, before you start the experiment, make sure that you go over here and you're going to enter your student ID. So capital letter plus whatever the numbers are for your student ID. So make sure that goes in here. And after you do that, then you can begin the experiment. So here, let's look at how this experiment is, or this lab is organized. So if you look at the instructions, let me make this a little bit smaller. So if you look at the instructions, there's different sections. So there's section A, so that corresponds to over here, section A. There's section C, and that section C corresponds to here, section C. And even for the rest of the lab, it's the same thing. So you have these different sections. These correspond to the instructions that you'll have to read. So you can see here you have section D. That's section D here. So whatever it tells you to do in section D, you're going to put that over here in section D here. So that's the first part. So the instructions are separated into sections, and those you have to go to those different sections to enter those values or to do whatever the instructions ask. So let's go ahead and begin. So first go to section A. So over here, section A. Actually, let me just clear that. So it should come in clear like this here. So let's see what this part says. So for section A, the basic idea is that you're given time and you're given a number. And so what it says is that you're going to pick the units for time and a number, or in this case here, radioactive decay. So the way that you'll pick the units is you're going to click here on this cell, and you're going to click on this little green little arrow here and select the units from the drop down list. So let's say that this is the unit for time, which it isn't. I'm just picking some numbers. Let's say this is the unit for this number here. So you'll pick the proper units for time and for the number. So that's going to be what you're going to do for section A. So the next part is it says go to section C and then create a scatter plot of the values from section A. So let's go ahead and go to section C. So here, section C, and here you're going to create a scatter plot. So let's see how you can create a scatter plot. So what you'll do is you're going to go to section A and highlight all the numbers in that column. Make sure that you only highlight the numbers and not the units. Just highlight the numbers. Once you have those numbers highlighted, then you're going to click on here. Well, you're going to go here to insert, and you're going to select scatter, and you're going to pick the first one here that has just the data points. And once you do that, you can see here that Excel automatically calculates or converts those data points into a graph. So once you've done that, then the next part is you're going to enter a title for your experiment. I'm just going to give a generic one. And you also want to label your x-axis and your y-axis. So from depending on the version that you have, so some versions of Excel, there's like a green plus sign here. You can click on that, but my version doesn't have that. So what I have to do is you're going to go to chart design here, chart design, and you're going to go to this one over here, add chart elements, and you're going to select axis titles, primary horizontal. So then you notice here this thing is going to pop up, and let's just say that I believe this was time, but you can also use a unit. So that's, and also don't forget the unit for time. And same thing for the vertical axis. So here to get add a title to the vertical axis, you'll go here to chart, over here, add chart elements. And then you're going to click on the axis titles. In this case here, it's going to be primary vertical. And here then, I believe this was number, but you should choose something more suitable. I'm being pretty generic here. And also the units, comma the units. So that's the first part. And the most important part though is to get an equation for this graph. So the way you'll do that is you're gonna click on any data point, right click on it, and you're gonna select add trend line. And once you do that, you see a line is gonna come up. So clearly this is not the right trend line because this line doesn't really fit those numbers here. So you'll have to decide which trend line is going to best fit those numbers. Is it exponential? Is it going to be power, logarithmic, or polynomial? So I'll just pick this one. So it kind of fits it, but it's not really the best one. So you should have to decide which one is going to best fit your numbers here. The next part, though, is again another important thing is once you add your trend line, make sure you click on display equation on chart. And once you have display equation on chart selected, you can see here that an equation pops up. And you can also even make that equation bigger if you like. You can highlight it and increase the font size. But the leading number here, that's going to correspond to, in this case here, what we'll be trying to record. So we've completed section C. We have titles for graph, units. We have a trend line, and we have a trend line equation. And this is what section C is asking for here. The other part, it says in section C, you're going to identify the growth rate. And here, the growth rate, we'll just take it to be the leading term in this trend line here. So this 178. Now, from section C, you're going to go to section D. So let's see where section D is. So section D is going to be right here. So in section D, what you have to do is to, let me just zoom in. You're going to add define what type of trend line that made that best fit your data points here. Was it the linear? Was it a polynomial? I chose power, so then I'll select power here. And then the growth rate, that's going to be this leading number here. So that should be 178. And you also select the units for the growth rate. So let's just say, again, I'm kind of just making up numbers here in terms of what the actual answers are. But so here, then you have your trend line, and then the growth rate and the units for the growth rate. And that's section D. Okay, so let's see what's next here. So yeah, here we go, section D. That was the last part of how to graph a non-linear graph. So the next part is how to linearize a general graph. So here, to linearize a graph, make sure that you watch the lecture on how to linearize graphs. And this is a reference to that lecture here. So it says here for section B, well, let's see where section B is. Section B is right here. Okay, so for section B, it says that you're going to refer to your linearization guide here, and you're going to decide which one of these, is it the quadratic, polynomial order 2, or is it an exponential, or is it a power graph? So which one of these is going to linearize a graph? I chose power, so I'll use these here. I'll just use this one in here. But you'll have to decide yourself which one actually does linearize the graph. So, so yeah, here you're going to select the form of the variable z and t that are going to linearize your graph. So then you'll go here to section B. And so what form of t is in z and t are going to linearize x and y here. So let's just say that I chose t squared and log z to linearize this graph here. So that's the first part. You get the form of z and t that are going to linearize these numbers here. So actually get the numbers out. This is how you'll do it. So in an Excel, so if you notice, there's a lot of numbers to calculate here. So you don't want to do this by hand. It's better to have Excel do this for you. So the way you'll do that is in Excel, always start with an equal sign. Actually, let me just zoom in more so you can see it better. Okay. So then here in Excel, anytime you start with a calculation, always, or if anytime you want to do a calculation, always start with the equal sign. And in the thing that you want to operate on, so in this case here, I want to square this number. So you just click on it, and then square means raised to a power of 2. And Excel gives you that number there. And again, you don't want to have Excel can actually do all these other numbers for you as well. And the way you do that is you just click on a cell, and then I believe you just double click, and they should all pop up. This one doesn't here, so here then your other option is to just click on this little arrow, until or click on the little green box until this cross becomes black, and then just drag it down. So that's one option. And so Excel calculated all those numbers there for you. And let's also do it for the second column here. So here, this number is going to be the natural log of that number, or excuse me, the log of that number. So then here, so if I want to calculate that, I'll just type equals. Actually, and here I want log, so log, and then parentheses. And inside the parentheses, I want this number. And Excel does the first one for you. So let's see if it works. If I double click, there it is. So I just double click on the side, and Excel automatically calculate all the other ones there. So you can either click on the side of the box and drag it down, or double click, and actually Excel can populate the rest of them for you here. So there it is. So you've gotten your numbers, your linearization of your nonlinear numbers, and that's section B. So let's zoom out to see what else we have to do. So here we are, section B. So we filled in the section B with the values for that are going to linearize the graph, linearize the original table. So let's go on to section F. So section F is similar to before. We have to create a trend line based on those numbers. So this one, I'll leave you to try to figure that out, but just to follow the same steps that you did over here for section C based on these numbers. But now you're going to select these numbers over here, and you're going to enter the trend line here. So let's go ahead and I'll do some of them here. So in this section here, you want to select the entire section, but I'll just do part of it. So the way to do a trend line is you select all the numbers, and then you're going to go here to insert, and then here scatter, right there, insert, and then scatter, and click on that right there. And there you're given a set of numbers. So this is a partial graph, so this is in the entire graph. So you should do that for the entire section here, for all these numbers. Okay, but there it is. And just like before, what you'll do is that you're going to select a chart title and axis title. And I'm just going to redo this part because this is the important part. You always want to have a trend line and equation for the trend line, or the most important part. So the way you're going to get a trend line is to click on any data point, right click on a data point, and you're going to click on add trend line. And you can see here a trend line pops up. And this one looks like a straight line, but that's only because I chose a partial here. So then once you have that, then you'll go to this section and select, is it logarithmic that best fits it? We'll zoom out. Is it a power or polynomial? Well, you'll decide which one is going to best fit those numbers there. And again, the other important part about whenever you add a trend line is make sure that you select here, display equation on chart. And once you have the equation displayed on the chart, you can see right there, the leading term is going to be the growth rate in this case here. And that completes section F here. So the last part then is once you have, so there it is, section F, you have title, trend line equation, and the next thing is identify the growth rate. You're going to use that in section G. So let's see where section G is. So section G is right here. So for section G, the trend line, I believe I chose power again, but you'll have to just actually get the correct one, but I chose power. And the growth rate is going to be based on the graph, but for power it should be the leading term there. So then this is going to be negative. Well, I'll just actually use the number that's written here. So negative 0.049, the growth rate. And you'll select the units for the growth rate. Just click on over here, select your units for growth rate, whatever they are. And the last part is that you're going to do a calculation of a percent difference between the two growth rates. And the percent difference equation is given over here in section H. And it's the absolute value of the difference between the two numbers divided by the average of those two numbers. So let's see how to do that in Excel. So again, this is more practice on how to do calculations in Excel. So here, that's going to go in this section here. So the form is always start with an equal sign, and it's going to be something divided by something. And the top part is actually absolute value, so you can type ABS and in parentheses, and then it's the absolute value of this number minus, and let's zoom out. And minus this number here. And if you notice, they're both selected. And then the second part is divided by those two numbers added and then divided by 2. So something divided by 2. And here I'll just type it in. So here it's the first number. Well, this one's easy enough. I can just click on that cell there and then plus the other number, which is cell AE6, and then also multiply by 100. So again, the numbers weren't close because I kind of fudged the numbers, but this becomes a 200% difference, and you'll select the units for percent difference over here. So whatever the units for percent difference, you'll select it from here. And this completes part 1 of the lab. And you'll have to repeat the same procedures 2 more times. You'll do that for part 2 here, and also for part 3. So it's really the same exact procedures, but applied to different data points. And you just have to go back to this linearization guide to decide which one you're going to choose to convert the data points into a straight line. Once you completed the first part, which is in this case here, this is going to be the lab. Next, you can begin the homework. So you'll find the homework over here. If you go, right there. So there's a tab that says lab. There's a tab that says homework. So you'll click on the tab for homework. So lab, homework. And then you're going to do these homework assignments. So first question, so here you're given a question, you're given some data points. You're going to enter the data points over here. And you have to decide based on what you're given here, load, mass, grams, extension, x, centimeters. You'll have to decide, you'll have to label these properly. So the independent variable, is it load or is it extension? And does load have a variable x, or does it have a variable m? And does load have a unit grams or centimeters? So you have to decide that. And once you decided the values for the proper form of the independent and dependent variables for these these six parts over here, then the bottom part, these are going to be all these numbers here. So you have to enter those into this section over here. And part B is once you've gotten these numbers, you're going to do like in the lab, you're going to convert these numbers into a graph. So it should look something like this here. So you're going to have a x-axis with the titles, y-axis with the titles and the units. You're going to have your data points, and you're going to have an equation. You're going to have a graph and also an equation for that trend line, just like we did during the lab. And you're going to put that graph over here. And so the slope of that graph you're going to enter into this section over here. And there's one more thing, which is going to be how to enter error bars. So let me actually go back to the lab and show you how to do that. So here, if you try to enter error bars, let's zoom in. So if I want to add error bars here, click on a data point, and there's a couple of options, but probably for me, the option that I'll do is go back into add chart elements. So then you go here, chart design, and then chart elements, and then error bars. And let's see here, I want just vertical, so I'll just pick standard error. And you'll just have to, kind of edit those. You want to get rid of you actually want to get rid of the horizontal ones. You just want the verticals. And you can actually change the settings to adjust the height of those error bars. So I'll let you play with that to figure out how to actually set those values for the error bars to, it says here, to set those to right there, 0.3. And that's the first question for homework, for the homework assignment. And the second question is you're going to have to read, you have to read the section here, and also you're going to have to go ahead and look at your graph, how to linearize a graph. So what you're given is 3 columns. You're given a time column, you're given a population column, and you're given the natural log of the population here. And you're gonna, this graph, you don't want to just you don't want to graph the nonlinear version, you want to graph the linearized version. So you're going to choose 2 out of these 3, and you're going to enter those into this column over here. And the 2 out of the 3 that you want to choose are the 2 that are going to linearize the graph. And so remember, you have to decide, so this is an exponential decay here. So you have to decide what is a form of z and t that are going to linearize an exponential decay. And once you decided what the form of z and t are going to linearize the exponential decay, then you're going to pick the proper, the corresponding numbers here, whichever one you decide, and you're going to just copy those numbers into this section here. And don't forget to enter the units as well. So you can see the units are given right here for you. So you're gonna, first thing is just you're gonna make a table that picking 2 out of these 3 columns that is gonna linearize the exponential. So that's the first part. And the second part is once the graph is linear, well, then you're going to take these numbers here, you're going to create a graph of these numbers here, and you're going to enter those numbers over here in section 5. And whenever you have a graph, remember you want to include a trend line and a trend line equation. And once you get the trend line equation for a linear graph, you're going to enter the slope here. And as I said, the slope is going to be, let's say 5. So the slope is 5, and the time constant for the exponential decay is pretty simple actually. Here, the independent variable is t, and the coefficient of t is this other number here, which is tau, which is the reciprocal. So normally, the equation is going to be, m multiplied by x, and the number, where in this case here, the independent variable is t, so m is going to be the slope and t is going to be the independent variable. Here, tau is 1 over the slope. So what you just have to do is take to find out this time constant, it's the opposite of the slope. So to get the time constant, it's just going to be 1 over 5. And that'll be the time constant. And that concludes how you're going to do the homework assignments for Lab 1.